Saturday night. He's back next year.
I'd like to call to order the November 17, 2011 meeting of the Johnson County Community College Board of Trustees, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair Schlicht, if you could do the roll call and recognition of visitors, please.
This evening's visitors include Elizabeth Pritting, Dan Nordmeyer, Megan Carruthers, Chris Clausen, Dan Rockhill, and Tim O'Brien.
Thank you. We move now to the first of two petitions and communication sections of the board agenda. And this is a time for members of the community to provide comments to the board. Comments are limited to 5 minutes unless a significant number of people plan on speaking. In that instance, the chair may limit a person's comments to less than 5 minutes. Presenters may choose to speak at either the first or the second section, but not both. And prior to beginning comments, we ask that you state your name, address, city, and state. And is there anyone at this time that would like to address the board? All right, seeing none, we will close the first of the two petitions and communications sections, and there will be another one in approximately 30 to 45 minutes.
Being great. Good for you.
All right, we will see. And that brings us next to awards and recognitions. Dr. Grove.
Chair Weiss, we have no awards or recognitions this evening, but I will promise holiday presents in December.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so we're still on track then. All right, Mr. Carter, our lobbyist report, please.
I'd be happy to say that there's no lobbyist report if you want to keep moving on down the road.
There may not be a lobbyist check then.
Just so happens that I have a 6-page report right here in my hands.
We're getting our money's worth, yes.
I'm going to read it verbatim. Well, end of October revenues were down slightly after a first few months of the new fiscal year being on the uptick, but don't worry. The Consensus Revenue Estimating Group is the group of state fiscal economists that get together a couple of times a year, met on November 4th, and decided that they would readjust the ending balance figures for the state of Kansas up about $199 million, almost $200 million. It's not necessarily a game changer, but it will affect the debate and the dialogue that we have this coming session. Those figures put the end of the year balance for fiscal year 2012 at about $318 million and bumps it up to about $389 million at the end of fiscal year 2013, the budget year that we'll begin talking about very soon. I've attached a copy of that note or that brief memo to the report, and would encourage you to, for those of you that are having a hard time sleeping at night, that you might want to take a look at that. There's not a lot of interesting information in there, but it does show some calculations and some anticipated revenues that will be coming in and or being reduced. Those are the real numbers as far as a fiscal outlook is concerned. Those don't take into account what might happen when we start talking about tax policy changes, K-12 finance, the things that will affect the budget moving forward. Not a lot of tax talk right now. Secretary of Revenue was in Wichita today to address the independent business group down there, the Federation of Independent Businesses, and did not share anything. I was paying close attention to see if anything came out late this afternoon. There was a brief memo that came out, but nothing new was being shared that we don't already know or haven't already heard. They're pretty much on lockdown at this point until after the legislature convenes, and what we're hearing now is we'll receive the details of what the tax policy proposal from the administration looks like at the State of the State address. Quite frankly, from their perspective, that makes sense in my book. Why would you want to put something out that people can start chipping away at a month and a half or so in advance? But again, that's what we'll be dealing with once the legislature convenes. Interestingly, there is a no income tax group that has sprung up and has gone on a bus tour, as well as the Kansas Policy Institute will be undertaking some marketing, some advertising efforts to, again, reduce income tax collections across the state, at least from the perspective of the no income tax group, and that is the name of the group. They do not have a specific proposal. They will not be endorsing a specific proposal. They're merely championing the cause of reducing and eliminating the statewide personal income tax. So it will be interesting to see what happens once several proposals start floating out there. It's kind of the old adage, and now that I get to that point where I want to bring up the cliche, I can't even think of it. But if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything.
Aaron Tippin was a country western song in the early '90s.
I'm going to have to check out that genre of music. I'm unfamiliar with it, but thank you, Trustee.
I'll sleep better now.
Little new news on the K-12 finance front as well. However, we are beginning to now see the divide start to appear, and it's going to be very much an urban and rural divide, which in the past it's been anything from Republican and Democrat to conservative to moderate. This will become an urban versus rural policy debate, and it will affect the way the rest of the dialogue will occur this session as well. With respect to redistricting, I haven't covered this piece specifically, but it's probably not news to you, and you may hear in the circles that you run in that Johnson County stands to pick up at least one Senate seat, most likely, and 3 House seats. So again, that's going to change the face of what our local delegation looks like in Topeka, and that's something that we'll continue to pay attention to all throughout the rest of the session. The other item that has been being worked at the Board of Regents level also had some additional discussion today, and that is the public notice on over the internet, or the electronic notice piece, which is very important to us, but is a piece that the board will be endorsing on behalf of the Community College Association of Trustees. Today, I believe they added some language to the proposal, if I'm not mistaken, that would just simply indicate that it would be an alternative or a supplemental means of making public notice, so as not to, I think with the intent or the attempt to not offend print publications. And I see that as a wise move, and would have anticipated that as we continue to develop what we believe would be an amendment or a legislative language, we would include that type of language. Finally, we started the first of our series of legislative dialogues, and we've, as you're aware, broadened those just from breakfast to include a couple of lunch events. At the first one, we had Representative Kegel, Representative O'Hara, and Senator Owens, and it was a very good dialogue. And if nothing else, we're continuing to build the relationships that are important to advancing the college's mission at the legislative level. We also got to hear a little bit of some of their opinions, or some of what they see going on, but once again saw broad support for the college, and that's something that reaches across a number, whether it's party lines or whether it's conservative or moderate lines. It's good to see that type of support coming from folks that are representing us in Topeka. We still have 3 of those left to go, and I'm working on contacting those that have not indicated their intent to attend, and so hopefully we'll be adding to those numbers of folks that have already agreed to be with us. I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
All right, and also I'd like to personally thank the trustees that were able to make the luncheon earlier in the week. It's an important part of the college's business, and I appreciate that. All right, do we have any questions or comments of Mr. Carter? All right, thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, we will begin next with our committee reports and recommendations. We'll begin with Trustee Dr. Drummond with the management report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you would turn behind tab, behind tab 2, you'll find in your packet pages 3 through 10 pertaining to board recommendations. The first one we'll take a look at is behind page 3 of the packet. These are proposed guidelines for the 2012-13 budget. which you've seen nearly every month, so I'm sure you've got this well studied. But let me point out just a few highlights, and then you can ask questions if you wish of Mr. Perkins. The budget's going to be constructed, as we've talked about, from the framework that we've developed called the PBS, and it'll be embedded within our college strategic plan. Secondly, there will be no additional full-time faculty or staff positions. There may be some reallocations to different areas as we go through it, but there will be no new full-time positions. The 2012-13 budget will be prepared on the assumption that the county's evaluation will remain flat. Tuition will be increased $2 per credit hour for in-state students, $5 per credit hour for out-of-state students. And finally, the budget will include 0.5 mills. This will be the last year of the five-year capital outlay mill levy, and that will be included in this. And that's something we may have to talk about down the road, but it'll be included in this year's budget. Any questions or comments you might have? If not, I can make a recommendation.
I just have one question before
Sure.
we continue. Could we have a very brief recap of the tuition increases over the last 2 or 3 years? It seems to me that the $2 is less than what we've typically done over the last couple of years.
Mr. Perkins?
Done.
Tuition's gone up, I think, $6
A year or total?
each year,
Okay.
of each of the past 2 years.
Okay, so this is a less increase than what we've seen over the last couple of years. Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, it's a recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the College Administration to approve the guidelines for the fiscal year 2012-13 budget. And I would so move, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
All right, we have both a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Our second recommendation on page 5 pertains to an annual contract for housekeeping services. We've talked about contracting with an outsourced organization for quite a while. This will be at our Olathe Health Education Center, as you're all very aware. This will be a contract beginning December 1st, going through November 13th, 2012. This contract will be renewed for 4 additional years in 1-year increments upon approval of both parties. So with that said, it is recommended by the Management Committee of the Board of Trustees, accept the recommendation of the College Administration to approve the establishment of annual contract with ABM Janitorial Services North Central Incorporated for housekeeping services at Olathe Health Education Center in the amount not to exceed $87,685.40, and I would so move.
Second?
Any discussion on this? Please, Trustee Rail.
Mr. Chair. Just real quickly, I just want to make sure that we've clarified, this is not displacing any incumbent employees of the college. Is that correct?
Correct.
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
To Trustee Rail's question and Dr. Drummond's response, just an added piece of information. We've actually, and the answer is absolutely correct. This does not displace anyone, consistent with what we discussed last month, but also consistent with what we discussed last month. We've had now 2 or 3 resignations, 3.5 FTE that we now have vacant that we didn't have last month. And so we're also looking to bring some of our full-time custodial staff onto campus to kind of fill those gaps, and we're going to outsource then again. So probably next month you'll see us come back now with a recommendation to do some additional outsourcing as we had kind of committed to for our other off-campus sites. So we are kind of going through some of that and kind of from both sides staying true to our commitment to our existing staff, but also as vacancies occur, starting to look at outsourcing other buildings as they may be either on campus or off. So,
Thank you.
so you'll see another recommendation next month, most likely for Kings Cove and West Park.
All right, thank you. Other questions or comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. On pages 5 and 6, another recommendation pertaining to the purchase of audiovisual equipment is featured. This is used in classrooms in several classroom buildings. Panasonic projectors will be used campus-wide. The recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the lowest acceptable bids of $231,318 from Prisa Technology and $21,660 from Taurus Technologies for a total expenditure of $252,978 for audiovisual equipment, and I would so move that.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Next recommendation pertains to some general construction services in our data room in OCB. You've had a chance to read that, so I would make the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the low bid of $49,800 from KES Construction LLC, plus an additional $4,980 to allow for contingencies for possible unforeseen costs for a total expenditure not to exceed $54,780 for the OCB data room, and I would so move.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
In the next three recommendations, we've sort of put those together for expediency purposes. So we've lumped together the purchase of 12 welding units, some accessories and supplies, some remanufactured toner and ink cartridges, and some light poles to be used along the GEB walkway. So as a recommendation of the Management Committee, the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the following. Number one, low bid of $61,569.12 from Hohenschein Welders Supply Incorporated for welding kits. Number two, the proposal from EIS Office Solutions for the establishment of an annual contract for remanufactured toner and ink cartridges and an annual expenditure not to exceed $80,000. Excuse me, and the lowest acceptable bid of $62,059 from City Lighting Products Company for lumen light poles, and I would so move.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion's pass.
Thank you. And the final recommendation from the Management Committee, the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve $2,500 for the Sunflower House Valentine Gala, and I would so move.
Second.
All right, we have both a motion and finally a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Just to highlight a couple other things very, very quickly, on pages 17 to 23, you see information regarding our network infrastructure, equipment, and services, and monthly expenditure report is included, it's featured. Denise gave us an overview of the expenditure of Classroom Technology Fund, which was part of a tuition increase this past year. The expenditures total nearly $400,000. It was a very good overview. We're making just superb progress in re-engineering our IT throughout campus. Excuse me. Also, you will see the capital acquisitions and improvements agenda item that was provided and talked about by Rex and Bob. And Bob reminded us that our funds have to be expended on the PEI projects by March 15th, and we still have a project or two to work with, and we'll have that done in time. All that said, our staff continues to do an excellent job, and we really appreciate it. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Moving next to learning quality and Trustee Sharp.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Musel because apparently Dr. Callaway and I were at the same event this weekend.
Okay.
The committee, we have no action items. The committee met at 8 o'clock on Monday, November 7th. Had a pretty large group. The first item on the agenda was to have the 804 studio presentation, which I think is presented to multiple committees, I know at least to management, about the opportunity to construct a platinum LEED building here on campus. We heard from Dr. Jay Annell about it and Dr. Dan Rockhill from the KU Architectural Program. It would be a two-classroom building. Donna Sanders from the JCCC student, a member of the Sustainability Committee, announced that the Sustainability Committee had agreed to unanimously and enthusiastically forward $150,000 of its student funds for the project, and I think we'll be looking at this soon, later today.
During the new business.
Okay. The second item was to discuss just a simulation program that we have sponsored here at the college with some very high-level national presenters on simulation lab technologies used in the medical profession. This past year, we also helped send that to Russia based on Dr. Sopcich's Fulbright scholarship visit over there, and it was very interesting to hear about that. Approximately 150 people attending on campus from all over America, actually, including a lot of the local medical and healthcare industry. This year, faculty from Harvard presented, and next year, faculty from Stanford will present. So I think it's having just learned about it, it sounded like a great opportunity for Johnson County Community College to continue to build on its national profile. We had some curriculum reports on some new web technology and legal interpreting classes that have been added, updates in computer-aided drafting, and 2 program deletions as well. And finally, Dr. Grove was going to give us a complete, comprehensive look at AQUIP certification program, but we ran out of time, and we'll do some more of that at our December meeting. I think that's the end of the report.
Okay, all right, thank you. Trustee Rail, Human Resources, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In keeping with our streamlined approach to tonight's meeting, I think the HR committee report will be fairly short and succinct. We met at 8:30 in the morning on November the 1st. I have 2 recommendations to bring forward. The first relates to the non-discrimination policy. You may recall that that policy was brought before the board for a first read back in July. We've made some revisions to that policy after deciding that some of the things that were addressed could be better addressed in procedures rather than policies. And so the recommendation that we're bringing forward to the board tonight is for approval of the final version of that non-discrimination policy, which adds the phrase genetic information to the policy under federal law. As most of you are aware, under the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, it is unlawful to discriminate on the basis of genetic information, and so we've included that into our policy to make it consistent with federal law. And so after that brief explanation, the recommendation of the Human Resources Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the amendments to Board Policy 411.01 non-discrimination, as is shown behind tab 4 in the board packet. And I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I would just commend our HR committee for working so diligently and so hard on this. I know it's a complicated issue, and I just think it's a good policy for us. And from this board member's perspective, I see it as absolutely no tolerance for any type of discrimination on our campus in any way, shape, or form. We can make this statement a lot longer, probably. We can't make it much shorter because of federal law, but I think regardless of what it suggests in here, from this board member's perspective, there is just no tolerance for any type of discrimination. So again, I commend the work of this committee and of our board, and that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add that I really think Trustee Rail really led us on a good path at our committee meeting, along with Judy Korb, and I feel very good about how, and support the comments of Trustee Drummond on the resolve we have for this issue.
All right, any other comments? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other recommendation I have to bring forward relates to the mandatory training policy. We're making a revision to the mandatory training policy that will require that training on the subject of sexual harassment be conducted on an annual basis as opposed to a biannual basis. And that obviously is in keeping with our philosophy and commitment to against discrimination on any basis, but certainly to make sure that employees and staff are well informed as to what our policies are and how those policies are implemented. And so, and there's a copy of that behind, that change behind tab 4, page 34 of your board packet as well. So with that in mind, it is the recommendation of the Human Resources Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the amendments to Board Policy 422.02, mandatory training, as is shown in the board packet. And I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was curious about was there some perceived, to the extent we can get into this without attorney-client information if there's pending litigation, but is there a perceived shortcoming in the once every 2 years? How much time will this take? Does it, it's like many things, the people that need the training don't get it or don't understand it as much as they should in most aspects of life. So I was worried a little bit about the amount of time we're going to have employees doing this. It's going to take twice as much time as they did before, and is that some mandatory thing? Is that a recommendation from Mark, or is what? A lot of questions in there. I apologize.
I can address that initially, and then I'll defer to Dr. Korb, but certainly it's not a reflection of any shortcoming or perceived shortcoming in terms of the quality of training that was being conducted. It's more a matter of making sure that we're touching base with everyone on an annual basis to keep folks apprised of changes in the law and things of that nature. And in answer to your question about a time commitment, we discussed that in committee as well. Most of this training is done electronically. It's not a bunch of people in a room sitting down listening to a lecture, and so it's not as time intensive as you might imagine. And so we felt that from a risk management perspective and to make sure everyone's remaining apprised of what's going on in that particular area of the law, that it would be best to do it on an annual basis. And I'll defer to Dr. Korb if she has anything further to add about the time issue.
No, the time it takes is about, for the sexual harassment training, is about 45 minutes, and it is done online. And we really just thought it was a best practice. The information privacy and security training that we do that's mandatory is required every year, and that's required by law. And then we were doing the sexual harassment training every other year, and we decided it was best to just bring those two things in line. It's a best practice to do it every year, and so we just said we would just do it every year, every fiscal. People go through that training. And
I will speak only for this trustee, but I would like to have you send me those training things so I could take them.
absolutely. You would have access to them, and we can do that. We can send you the links, and you can go through those.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you thinking you need the training, or you're just
Yes,
curious
is that-
as to the content? That's a rhetorical question, Trustee Musil.
I don't think it hurts anything to have the board go through that on an annual basis as well, and I would support that. Any other discussion? All right, we have both a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
I'll just briefly mention that we did review the quarterly exit interviews from employees who left the organization. We always review those to see if there are any issues or things that need to be addressed or looked at or considered, and so we did spend some time reviewing those. There was nothing of note really for us to consider, and that, if there are no questions, concludes my report.
All right, thank you. With regard to the Audit Committee report, the Audit Committee met on Wednesday, November 2nd, and there's a report on that starting on page 37 of your packet. Our auditors, McGladden and Pullen, were here to review their audit of our annual financial statement report and compliance reports for the year ending June 30th, 2011. And I'm happy to report that we received an unqualified opinion, which is the best opinion that we can receive. And with regard to that, we do have the following recommendation. And I will make that recommendation, that it's the recommendation of the Audit Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the administration's recommendation to accept the audited financial statements for the year ending June 30th, 2011.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The Audit Committee discussed a number of other topics. All again, I think are covered in detail in your report. Those topics included a wireless network assessment, an update on current and planned audits, along with the other associated activities with that, a quarterly project update on auditing activities, information security, emergency preparedness, and enterprise risk management, and some emergency management policy recommendations were brought forward as well. And we do have a second recommendation having to do with the internal audit policy, 210-006, with some recommended changes. This policy basically states that the auditors sit in the shoes of, or stand in the shoes, I guess, of someone else doing their job when they are doing the audit, and by that have all of the rights to access the data for the purposes of audit that people in that function would normally have in doing their jobs. And so at this time, I will make the recommendation that the board approve the audit committee recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the change to board policy 210.06 as shown subsequently in the board packet, and I believe that that is shown on, I'm sorry? Page 43, thank you. So I'll make that recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The last thing that I want to talk about with regards to the audit committee report, we had a first read of a number of suggested policy changes, and those are found in your packet on pages 41 and 42. I would recommend that you read those at your convenience. We will see those again probably in one or two board meetings to follow. And then I will wrap up by talking very briefly about the college ethics report line and an update from that. This is one of the most important things that we do here at the college, is to provide a format for members of the college community to make anonymous reports if they wish to do so regarding things that they do that they believe should not be occurring at the campus. And at the bottom of page 39 in your report is a summary of the number of reports that we've seen over the last year. And if there are no other questions, I will end my audit report and we will move forward.
I might just comment on the audit, the compliance report.
Yes.
You know, when I glanced through it and I saw that we were non-compliant on some federal title, I guess it's the Pell Grant and direct loans, Title 9, earn, and that kind of raised a red flag, and you look at that and then you read that it was a very minor error and resulted in less than $18 in total funds in the calculation. What is the consequence of that? We have to file some revised report and send them a check for $18, or?
I don't know, Mr.
Anybody?
Prater?
It was inconsequential, according to the auditors, and so we filed a correction with federal government.
I mean, it doesn't even seem like it's worth filing a correction for.
$51 million a day.
Yeah, $18. I mean, it seems like it's kind of a, they probably spent a lot of time and effort in determining that $18, so. I guess that's my only point. I know that we work very hard at doing things right, but when you see that in a compliance report, it's kind of a red flag, and then you read through and you go, $18 up on
Out of 51 million, and I believe
They
that.
have better things to do.
Right, and I believe the process has been modified so that that will not reoccur again as well. So, thank you. Anything else? All right. We'll move then on to our President's recommendations for action, and we'll begin with the Treasurer's report. And Trustee Dr. Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Behind tab 6, pages 45 through 56, you'll see the Treasurer's report. I will give you a very brief overview and entertain questions. This contains a Treasurer's report for the month ending September 30th, 2011. During this month, we received just under $4 million of a tax distribution. In addition, as you read through the report, you might notice that general fund performance on year-to-date basis reveals that our revenues were about $1.8 million greater than the prior year, and that our expenses were about $1.3 million less. Both of them are going in the right direction, so we kind of like that. In addition, if you look at the auxiliary fund revenues on page 49, they were about $5.7 million. This is up about 3.25% over the previous quarter, again going in the right direction. And then you will notice on page 56 that our cash balances are very healthy going into this time of the year when we need it for various things. So with all that said, is a recommendation of the college administration that the Board of Trustees approve the treasurer's report for the month of September 2011, subject to audit. And I would so move, Mr. Chairman.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, and Dr. Drummond, does that conclude your treasurer's
That
report?
concludes my report. Thank you very much.
In that case, we'll move to the monthly president's report, and Dr. Callaway.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Dr. Weiss. I'd like to start my report this month by recognizing Bob Prater and Dr. Sobchak and all the team in the fiscal affairs area for all their good work related to our finances all throughout the year, but most particularly as we dealt with this, the support team that worked on the audit. As we heard the audit report, for those members from the committee, as you heard, Bob and his team were cited for their really outstanding work and high quality of the things that they prepared. And so, Bob, to you and all your team, and Joe, thank you for a job well done. Great job. You know, when you do hear about an $18 error out of 51 million being the biggest red flag, that says a lot about the kind of work that the team does. And certainly, Chris Christensen, too, from our financial aid group, got a real high remarks, too, from the audit team. So in addition to that, we also later through the auditing process had a report related to our foundation work, too, and I know Kate will talk a little bit about that later, but their audit also came back really in an excellent way, and so congratulations again to the team and the foundation. In one of those good news, bad news kinds of things, this week is the last week for our dear friend and respected colleague, Bill Osborne, who's been with us for 20-plus years. Bill's done just a magnificent job for us here at the institution over the period of his time. Of all things, he's suffering from the same maladies that all of us are, at least a couple of us are today. So I think he was out sick earlier today, Marilyn. But if you do have a chance, or if you happen to see Bill or think about it, if you could send him your best wishes. He's just been a tremendous asset to the institution, and we've been trying to convince him that, you know, that once he gets tired of retirement, you know, there'll be a place back here for him to kind of spend some of his time with us. So he's just a great friend and respected colleague, and appreciate and want to recognize his good work and have that on front of mind for all of you on the board. Last couple of days, we spent quite a bit of time with the regents, including today's meetings around articulation transfer. Pleased to report to the board that we continue to move forward in a very, very aggressive way with that work. And a major breakthrough happened yesterday with that process, where the regents really pushed hard. And by this time in January, we will have what I think will be a pretty significant general education core that will transfer in a guaranteed way for students across all of the state institutions. That's a huge, huge accomplishment for the community colleges and the universities and all the work. Quite frankly, I don't think it would have happened if it wasn't for this board. About a year ago, you challenged all of us here at the college to step up and really push hard and use the power of our institution. I think as a result of that, we're seeing major movement at the state level, and our students will benefit in a tremendously fine way from all of that. And so just want to recognize each and every one of you as you really took on that mantle of supporting our students. On Tuesday of this week, I was honored to serve on the dissertation committee for Sheila Maupin. Sheila's in the audience, and Sheila successfully defended her proposal for her dissertation, so she's about halfway through that mechanism, and congratulate her. She hit it out of the park in her defense, and so I know she's on a timeline towards finishing up early this spring, and look forward to all that final results. And her study is actually around some work that's happening here at our college around student engagement, so we'll look forward to see what the data shares with us, and congratulate Sheila on that major step in her doctoral work. Also in the afternoon on Tuesday, Mia Leggett, who you'll remember, did her internship with us, successfully defended her dissertation. So Dr. Leggett now is going to take a little bit of time off and I think do some job searching, and we congratulate Mia, who was part of our college family for a semester. Our behavior intervention team continues to do great work as we try and keep all of our people here on campus safe, and we also had the chance through our emergency management and planning team to have the executive team go through some training, and also that group conducted a safety audit on our campus, looking at everything from lighting to security services and support, and how we manage our safety efforts here at the college. And I'm looking forward to a report somewhere in the next month from that group, and we'll bring those findings forward to the institution and to the board, and look forward to whatever necessary enhancements we may need to make with that. Other than that, the board can find my full-blown report under Section 7 of your board packet, but I'd be open to any questions you may have for me related to the annual or the monthly report.
Any questions or comments? I have two. First, very briefly, Sheila, how much longer will you be with us? Okay, so not very much longer. We'll be sorry to see you go. And the second thing I want to say is that it's very easy for the board to sit here and tell Dr. Callaway and the staff, well, we think you ought to go do this or that or the other thing. But with regard to the articulation situation with the state of Kansas, just the board saying, go do that, doesn't really accomplish a whole lot. It's the hard work of the staff here and Dr. Callaway, you in particular, that has caused that issue to move forward. So it's much appreciated by the board and by community college students throughout the state. So again, we appreciate your hard work on that and look forward to a resolution with that issue.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I want to follow up on that. I can't think of a better service that we could provide to the citizens and taxpayers of the state of Kansas, other than to have them know that if their child goes to a community college, they will be able to take that core course onto one of the Regents universities and have it count and not have to repay and take more time for another course. I think, and it's not done yet, and I know we'll have to continue to be vigilant, but this is the most exciting thing to me that's happened since in the 4 months I've been on the board, is to think that maybe you could get that, and that we would save students and parents and everybody a lot of time and money by having them transfer seamlessly and get their four-year degree in the easiest way possible. So thank you.
Yeah, great.
All the whole team.
Okay.
Thank you. Under tab 8, in your board packet this evening, page 57, you'll see the beginnings of our clinical agreements. I won't say every month, but fairly regularly, we ask the board to consider clinical affiliate agreements for the work that we do, generally in our allied health programs. And in fact, we have one clinical affiliate agreement that we'd ask you to consider and approve this evening, and that's for our respiratory care program, clinical affiliations with St. Luke's East. And it would be the recommendation of the board of the college administration, the Board of Trustees authorize the college to enter into an agreement with St. Luke's East Hospital for the clinical experiences in our respiratory care program. This would be for a period of November 17th through June 30th, November 17th, 2011 through June 30th, 2012.
I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second?
All right, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Weiss. And that would conclude my report, unless there were questions the board members may have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Callaway.
Thank you.
I don't believe that we have any old business to bring to the board today. However, I believe that we do have some new business, and Dr. Annell, I understand that you have a presentation for us.
I do. What a not-so-long, strange trip this has been. Thank you all for, where's the Grateful Dead reference, 19?
I'm an Aaron Tippin country.
Oh, okay. Thank you all for being willing to talk about this particular proposal on relatively short notice. What I bring before you tonight is an opportunity for Johnson County Community College to, and perhaps most importantly, its students, to partner with the Studio 804 graduate architecture program to build a world-class building on our campus that our students will learn in and our students will train in. And I'll say a bit more about this a bit later on, but now I'd like to introduce the 804 project by introducing the head of that particular program, Distinguished Professor of Architecture from KU, Dan Rockhill.
Thank you and good evening, and we appreciate your taking the time. We understand time is precious, so I'm going to turn it over to a couple of students here to make a presentation. Dan and Liz. And we're going to hurry through this for you.
We got time.
All right, good evening. My name is Liz Pritting, and this is my colleague Dan Nordmeyer. As Jay said, we are graduate architecture students at KU in our final year program of Studio 804. And just really briefly a little bit about Studio 804. It's a design-build program focused on sustainable construction. We do both residential and commercial projects. Our first commercial project being in Greensburg, Kansas 4 years ago. And it was also the first LEED Platinum project we did and the first LEED Platinum project in the state of Kansas. And LEED Platinum is a standard to which we have held ourselves for the past 4 years, and to which we are designing this project as well. So this is our presentation for the Galileo Pavilion here on campus.
So moving on to your projects, your campus and what we started to take from it. Upon initially hearing about the project, one of the things that we did was walk around campus and look at sites that we really liked. And one of the sites in particular that we really enjoyed was the site Galileo's Garden. We liked it for its kind of central location within the campus, the high visibility, and we especially like the sculpture that currently resides on the site. The sculpture itself has kind of started to serve as an inspiration for our building. In our current proposal, we would like to restore it to its original state that Dale Eldred had it in his drawings in 1984, and really diving into the sculpture and understanding the relationship that it has with the sun, and really starting to incorporate some of those elements into our building as well. So kind of looking at the student lounge, how during the summer the sun would begin to come through the skylights in the roof and really start to highlight the green living wall on the north side of the lounge, as well as then in the winter flooding the space with natural light. We really wanted to incorporate a lot of the elements of the sculpture into our building. So kind of looking at the building, as Jay said, we kind of want this to be a learning tool for students and kind of a beacon of sustainability that starts to echo some of the programs that you already have here on campus, such as the rainwater management system, the farm. We really want to start to echo JCCC's efforts in sustainability. So looking at the floor plan, we wanted to provide obviously more classroom space for students. We've provided 2 classrooms for about 25 to 30 students on the east and the west, as well as that student lounge on the south, the kind of larger space with the conference room and kind of kitchenette area. The layout of the building would start to wrap around the sculpture and really frame it and highlight it as a main kind of sculpture piece in this courtyard that we want to start to encourage student interaction with the sculpture itself. As Liz touched on before, dealing with LEED and sustainability, one of the things that we always look at are these kind of passive and active systems that we can start to implement within the building, whether it's kind of using cross or stack ventilation to cool the building down, alternative energy sources with the wind turbine and photovoltaics, harnessing the sun's energy, or even rainwater management, kind of collecting the rainwater to be used throughout the building at a later time. We really like to incorporate these elements of sustainability into our building. So kind of getting back into the student lounge, looking south towards the courtyard, You can start to see how the windows begin to frame this courtyard and the sculpture. You can start to see the gabing wall system that we've started to install. And basically what that is, it's a steel and wire mesh basket that we would then place rocks in. And it really starts to play with the light and how the light matriculates into the space and creates a unique and dynamic learning environment for students. You can see the dropped LED lighting fixture that we would like to install that starts to really echo some of the architectural language you see in the Nerman Museum here on campus, as well as, again, the living wall that we see as a potential learning tool for the horticulture program to begin to utilize as kind of a unique and innovative way to learn about plant life and the integration of that into buildings. Looking at the conference space, we see this as a space for smaller student groups to begin to gather in a more private setting to get them out of that lounge and really give them a private space that they can conduct their business in. Moving towards the most important spaces, obviously, the classrooms. We really want this building to begin to be utilized by every single discipline on campus. We don't see one program taking over this building. We really want students from all programs to come in and not only learn what they're learning, but also learn about sustainability and how we can start to incorporate that into these classrooms. One of the things that 804 always prides themselves on is the kind of recycling and reusing of materials and how we start to do that. Whether it's slate floor or slate chalkboards that we would then take and refurbish and turn into flooring or cladding system, or recycled glass from buildings that would potentially be demolished in the Kansas City area. We really like to recycle these materials from buildings around the area. These materials that would otherwise go in a landfill.
And then moving to the exterior of the building, here you can see how these separate spaces wrap around this courtyard and then are connected by these glass vestibules, which serve as interstitial spaces. And you can begin to see how this sculpture would be reincorporated into the courtyard and how students could be underneath the sculpture and have a more enhanced interaction with it. And looking from the edge of the courtyard, you see this reflecting pool that wraps around the entire courtyard, and it serves as a visual tool to this idea of reclaiming and reusing rainwater in the building. And a lot of the sustainable technologies that we talk about, we've used sort of the cutting edge technologies every year, and we're always looking for new things. This is just looking at some things that we used last year, such as the wind turbine and solar panels, living wall, water reclamation, as well as something that is important to us, which is this idea of community outreach and how we can use this building as a learning tool. And one way we do that is by having interactive display boards in the space which show the real-time energy usage of the building as an education tool. And the way that Studio 804 works, we're able to deliver a high-quality building basically for half the cost of its real-world value. And just to sum up, we see this building as a learning tool, not only sitting here on campus, but in the process of it being built as well. And we see it as a learning tool for the students and an opportunity to bring the community in as well. So, thank you.
Okay, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions of Studio 804 if you'd like a few moments further in the presentation. But right now, I'd like for you all to hear from some of the students here on campus who are supportive of this program and have put their dollars behind it. So I'd like to introduce Kevin Clark and Jordan Henderson from our Student Sustainability Committee.
I'm Kevin Clark, co-chair of the Student Sustainability Committee here on campus, as well as Student Senator and Engagement Ambassador. This is Jordan Henderson, treasurer of the Student Senate. Student support for this project has been overwhelmingly positive. From those we've talked to and those we've engaged with, just seems like a great learning environment for multiple people in the program, such as HVAC, horticulture, even our own architecture program. Students could really benefit from this project. This Monday we presented this idea just for a vote of support with the Student Senate, and we received a unanimous vote of approval and support, something seldom seen in this current Senate, with myself abstaining. Other than that, I mean, it provides excellent opportunity for more classroom space that's desperately needed in lounge space, which is very seldom seen on campus and could definitely be of good use for clubs and organizations.
Well, to clarify, so I don't take a WISTA spot, I'm actually the secretary. She does all the money. That's no problem. What I would like to say is that as a student here at JCCC, you feel a sense of pride because not only have you made a great choice for your education, but also for your pocketbook. And to have a building like this, I mean, to say as a student, I go to a community college and I have a LEED Platinum building, you know, on my campus. I can use that building, you know, as a general education classroom. And I don't know another student that can say that. And that would be a huge source of pride for the students that come here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so some of you may be asking, certainly probably some in the audience, so where is this building on the campus master plan? And the answer is it isn't, but it's certainly inherent in our campus's strategic plan. Because here at Johnson County Community College, sustainability is part of that strategic plan. And more to the point, learning comes first at Johnson County Community College, and this building's about learning. We have 2 classrooms, general education classrooms. No program will own it. Students from all disciplines will be in this classroom, in these classrooms. And Dr. Reinhardt, do we need more classrooms between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m.?
Yes, we do.
And if we do this, these classes will be available for use next fall. In terms of learning opportunities, there will be crawl spaces all throughout the building for our tech programs to come in and see how these various active and passive systems work. Students who are, though, in the French class come in and have a question about how the building works, the building will be able to answer their questions because of the interpretive panels on the walls. This is the kind, and in terms of being good stewards of college resources, because of the way Studio 804 works, because of the donations that come from companies that want to have the technologies on display in their buildings, because of the fact that their labor is free, we get a $500 per square foot market value building for less than half that cost. And our students on the Green Fee Committee have chosen to put $150,000 of their own dollars to this project. In terms of payback for the college, just from tuition alone, not counting any state subsidies, it'll pay itself off in 3.5 years. And I think it's just a fantastic opportunity for us to be nimble, for us to take advantage of an opportunity that may not have been planned for, but as a chance I think that we really should take, and the institution will benefit greatly from it, and our students will benefit greatly from it. Now, a couple of points of clarification here. The idea here, and it's something that we want to have happen, and Bruce Hartman is here, and we're trying to make happen, is for the existing Galileo sculpture to fit into the courtyard of this building because of the synergies about engineering and the sun. Although there is the possibility that the sculpture may ultimately be moved depending how those conversations come out. So I don't want to give any false advertising here. This is our hope, this is what we want, but there's a possibility that the sculpture may move. Secondly, the reflecting pool you see there is an element that's still a little bit in play. We'd like to see it, but that, depending on what we hear from our maintenance folks, may or may not make the final cut. I thought we should have some truth in advertising here. So with all of that, one other thing. I would like to thank in public Kim Kreiner from my staff, who has been the go-between between 804 and the college, and has done a remarkable job. So with that, are there any questions for the 804 folks, or myself, or our students?
Trustee Cook.
Thank you, Chairman Weiss. I think, just to digress a minute, I was here this week for the legislative lunch and had the opportunity to engage with Bruce Hartman in the hallway. And recently we had a group of collectors, I believe, on campus from around the country, and a pretty significant manager of an art institute, as I recall. And the question when they left was, how in the world did you ever get a museum like this on a college campus? I've traveled the country and I've never seen a college have a building, have a museum like this. Is that, did I reflect that correctly? And that, along with buildings like the Rainier Center and the new Culinary Center that I think has the opportunity to be quite unique, This college has had a reputation of listening, I believe, to the students and the community, and be very interested in uniqueness. And I guess I'm very excited about this, Jay, in terms of, and to the 804 group, your commitment to sustainability and the message we can send, not just to the environment, but how we can improve the human condition, how we can have people understand each other. I appreciate the attitude of any program can go in here and conduct a class or an experience. So I see this as a movement toward how to improve humankind, and really am excited about the opportunity. Thank you, Chairman Weiss.
Okay. Trustee Reel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to observe, Dr. Annell and I had an opportunity to visit about this project over lunch, and one of the things that struck me when he talked about this project is this idea of teaching and learning, which is what we're all about here. And the fact that every student on campus will have an opportunity to enjoy this building in some capacity, whether it's having a class in there or just experiencing the lounge. And sustainability is not a passing phase. It is the way, as humankind, we must move. And to Dr. Cook's point, we have to, as a globe, learn how to make better use of our resources, and sustainability obviously is the way that that's going to be done. And a project like this offers an opportunity for every student on this campus to experience firsthand how that's done, how it's accomplished, and the kinds of things that are possible in using our resources in the right way. And so I look at this, it's a beautiful building, obviously, but more importantly, a wonderful opportunity for teaching and learning. So thank you for all the hard work, and it's very exciting.
Trustee Musil?
Well, I have some questions, I guess. I think I raised some of them at the Learning Quality Committee. The first one would be this and it's really Dr. Antle's point, that 3.5 years of payback by tuition alone. How do you calculate that?
That was just a number of classroom seats we believe to be occupied by students times dollars, tuition dollars, minus cost of instruction. And then cost of building, you divide all that out.
I don't think that accurately captures the costs of all the education, or else we should build a whole bunch of buildings. At $50 a foot. But I understand, I thought that's how you probably got it, but I'm going, geez, so we just built a couple more classrooms.
It also testifies to how general education classes are moneymakers for the college.
Right. I have some questions, because I mentioned this at the committee. I think the interior of the building, the sites the interiors you've shown are outstanding. I don't think it's a beautiful building from the outside, based on what I've seen, and I can't get a sense of the textures and the colors for sure. I assume these are fairly accurate, but part of it, just from the aesthetic standpoint, we picked a site which takes up one of the major green spaces in the heart of our campus, and we put a building in there that is very dramatically different than anything else we had, and maybe that's part of the lesson, but help me understand that.
Sure, I can.
The site itself,
Well, first
and then the aesthetics of the
sure.
building.
Well, the selection of the site was limited to something that would be within close proximity to the rest of the buildings on campus, and unfortunately, there wasn't anything else, and I know you understand that. With the exception of Galileo's Garden, which we worked very hard to try to integrate into this, and I suspect in the end, we will work all the subtle differences out. So we've tried to respect that. It's very hard to do a building that is transparent, as you know. In fact, we started with that idea. It just doesn't work for all of the LEED calculations that we have to do. We envisioned initially a building that you could almost see through, if you will, so that we didn't absorb that really important space in the center of campus. It's very difficult to do. The reason for the materials on the outside, by and large, have to do with LEED. Most of it is glass, and it's all recyclable. And so it's really that simple. We try to use materials that sort of reflect the spirit of recyclability, and glass is kind of a leader in that, as you understand. So I mean, we have literally shoehorned this building in here. You know, subtle little twists here and there are very, very difficult to make within the constraints of the site. But and the students have worked very hard to arrive at this. So I hope that answers your question.
There's also a question that I think Trustee Musil and also I think maybe Trustee Stewart might have asked in different meetings about the durability of these kinds of materials. So anything you got to say about that?
Well, we work with materials that are indeed durable. In fact, one of the questions that came up was the use of glass on the outside. When we went to Greensburg 3 years ago, or it would have been 2008, going on our 4th year now, we used glass there in that project, and anticipating your questions, a group of them went down. In fact, Megan is here, I know. She went down to visit with the executive director of the Greensburg Arts Center and to see what kinds of problems may or may not have come up with the use of glass. And they were delighted with it. They had, this being the director of the Arts Center, absolutely no problems, no breakage, and easy to maintain. So we were encouraged, and in fact, that fanned our fire to continue to use glass in a project such as this. So,
From a warranty standpoint, when we have a general contractor come in and we build a building, we have some abilities to go back to them for that, because you're going to contract out the work, I understand.
no, I'm sorry, we do the work.
You do all the work. So what, from a taxpayer standpoint on a warranty claim, when I see glass like that, I think it's durable, but I see leaks. Just because
Yeah, I
that seems to
understand.
be what happens,
Sure.
especially on the horizontal surfaces
Sure.
on the.
Well, for one, we obviously need to warranty the building just by Kansas law as a 1-year warranty, so that's guaranteed. But we stand behind the buildings because it's important to us and our reputation. And it's not unusual for us to go back, and quite honestly, it's part of the learning experience for these young people. These people will have moved on and hopefully have jobs, but the group that I have next year would benefit by coming back. I don't encourage callbacks, but you understand, you know, it's all part of the process. If you're going to do these kind of buildings that are a little bit out of the box, then you need to see the ramifications of those decisions. And so I have students back over at CDR, Center for Design Research, which we finished in July, you know, looking at some things, fixing a water fountain that had a little drip, you know, just those kinds of things. And we stand behind it. I wouldn't dare chance our reputation.
Yeah, and my final point was what I made at the committee meeting, and you've addressed it again here today, that this is a great learning experience during construction. I mean, it's just unparalleled. And you've addressed the fact that you'll have teaching opportunities throughout this building, for the future of the building, or any of the technical trades or other students that want to learn about how that building was built. Not the French students, perhaps, that want to go down to the basement and see how the rainwater.
Well, we would be delighted. In fact, we might implement a system whereby faculty would be able to, we would extend the invitation to faculty through Kim, who's our liaison, as Jay explained, and encourage people to come by. And we can set something up and come by during the course of construction. We can work those kinds of things out. I said when we visited last time at the meeting, you know, to me, universities are about ideas. And one of the problems that we have with the sustainable approach that we're all sort of taking is kind of demystifying, and it's very confusing to people. When I went to Greensburg, I learned a big lesson. All of these things that print out in real time now, because on our inverters, as an example, when the wind is blowing in Greensburg, as it does, you can see in real time a flicker of exactly how much energy you're generating. We couldn't keep the farmers out of the basement. They were absolutely fascinated by it. We had to put a sign up asking them to stay out so we could finish the building. So the idea now is to bring all this stuff upstairs and put it in the lounge. And so there will be a touch screen there, and you can see how much energy is being produced by the turbine or the photovoltaics. The idea is to reach over and flick a light switch and see the meter bounce, right? That way you really gain a first-hand appreciation of energy consumption.
I appreciate the effort, and I'll support this. I think one of the goals of this entire movement for sustainability and what your students are doing is to find ways to drive the cost of the sustainable building down so that we can afford it without you giving us half the value of the project. Because otherwise, it's very hard from a taxpayer standpoint to say I'm going to pay twice as much for a building because it's LEED platinum, because I don't think it will pay back in 3.5 years. And I think that's why it's our pleasure, I guess, to accept your labor and expertise. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, all right, and Dr. Annell, I believe you're looking for some action from the board this evening, is that correct?
We would like the approval of this project, and with a total probably amount not to exceed, I think, $700,000.
How much?
$700,000 not to exceed.
Is that, how does the student funds factor in there?
That would be, the 150 would already be part of that. So there would be a 550 total contribution from the
college, out of our capital.
and those funds are available right now, and our capital project is part of our planning that we've done through management committee. You'll remember there's been some discussions around energy savings and the like. So some of it will come through that capital side. The other thing that we think that will be maybe a little after the fact from our own perspective is we also think this will be a learning laboratory, obviously for our students, but potentially also for local area businesses that may want to explore the use of some of the technology. So there may be some opportunities for us to do some fundraising through the foundation. Kate's already had a chance to take a look at some of that, so we may do some after the fact fundraising on this project too, to kind of reimburse back the capital.
I'd move that we approve the Galileo Studio 804 project at a cost not to exceed $700,000 to the college and $550,000 to the capital fund.
Second?
Okay. Any questions or discussion?
My, I guess, comment, I'll support the project. I'm still somewhat, I guess, a learner on this and a little reluctant to, I think if there's going to be a place for this type of project, it would be at a college like ours. But to justify the cost of the project, as Mr. Musil pointed out earlier, $500 a square foot, we would never approve this. So hopefully we can show this building, and that over time the ability to provide this type of building for a lower cost will be available, but I'm not sure that you're going to get a lot of takers in the community for that. And we could build a lot of classroom space for the amount of money. Yeah, I think Olathe it was I don't know if Rex is here tonight. He may have skipped the meeting because he didn't want to be here.
He's off on some sick leave.
Okay, so, but the cost per square foot out of Olathe Health was a couple $100 a square foot, and we got a lot of space, but I'll support it.
We got a LEED gold building there for $1 million under budget.
Dr. Cook?
Thank you, Chairman Weiss. How many buildings are there like this in the region?
This would be our 5th LEED Platinum.
I mean exactly like this building.
Oh, none other.
Incorporating the sculpture idea in...
Oh, absolutely, right.
How many in the country? Would this be the only one?
I believe so.
Well, again, I really am excited about the uniqueness. I appreciate the comments about the cost and other classrooms. But I believe that, to your point, I think Dr. Weiss, you made the point about including the community and businesses. This could be a real interest generator that I think could lead to other kinds of financial activity and support. So I just really like the concept. But I do appreciate your concern, John, about the cost.
John?
Just curious, since Mr. Hartman is here, the details have been worked out. You're okay with the Galileo's, the restructuring of that, and is Ms. Tebby okay with that?
We've had a series of conversations with Studio 804 and looked at their original proposal, which is what you're actually seeing here. And we're anxious to make sure that the integrity of the sculpture is essentially maintained. That's what you all pay us to do. And so that's what we're working with Studio 804. And in our last meeting just several days ago, there's been a great effort to really address that. And it looks like we're close to resolving that.
And as far as Anita Teddy, she and I talked, and she's seen this.
We're also fortunate that Dale Eldred's widow is still living. And so we're going to seek her input as well. She's actually an engineer by training and lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico now. And so we're going to, solicit her advice and approval for this project as well. And I actually had the good fortune of knowing Dale Eldred personally, and I do think this is the kind of project that he would have embraced wholeheartedly.
All right, any other comments or questions? And it's also my understanding that approval of this project would not delay or otherwise affect construction of the culinary building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Seeing that there's no other comments or questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you all, and our students, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and that moves us to reports from board liaisons. We'll begin with the Kansas Association of Community College Trustees and Trustee Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Chairman Weiss. Our next meeting is December 4 and 5 in Independence, and I would just reaffirm what's been said tonight. We have 3 subcommittees at JCCC. One deals with marketing, one deals with public policy, and one deals with articulation. And the articulation issue, at least Dr. Callaway, in my opinion, is not just between community colleges and the Board of Regents, the universities, but with the 19 colleges having a viewpoint about articulation and representing their own colleges, that's another step in this whole process. And I would like to acknowledge that I think the work that former trustee Mitchelson did on the board, the leadership that Dr. Callaway provides to the 19 colleges to have them come together is certainly significant as well. And we'll be addressing, I happen to be on the articulation subcommittee, and so I know we'll be spending additional time with that December 4 and 5 in Independence. If any of you have nothing to do on that Sunday day and would like to accompany Dr. Callaway and myself, you're certainly more than welcome. We'll be leaving at about 4 a.m., and we'll meet you at a convenient place. Actually, it's not that far, but we're looking forward to the meeting, and that's my report.
And that 4 a.m. is solid, is that right? I was all excited about it until you said that.
We can move the time.
All right. All right, Trustee Stewart, can you bring us up to date on Johnson County Research Triangle?
I am going to ask Joe Sopcich to make that report. I was not at this meeting, and he attended on behalf of the college, so.
I was able to fill in for Trustee Stewart. The meeting was relatively uneventful. They reviewed their website, and then one of the features of their website is that all 3 of the schools have the ability to go in there and make adjustments to it, and so they were demonstrating that. They also conducted a tour of their new facility. Things are moving very well on JCERT, and it was a well-conducted meeting.
And the best building on the KU campus is about finished, and they'll have that grand opening, ribbon cutting scheduled for March next spring. So that's another exciting building coming to fruition. So you'll all, I'm sure, be invited.
All right, thank you.
The JCERT facility you talked about that you toured, which one are you talking about?
Regent Center. The meeting was at the Regent Center.
Okay.
It's the best building. Yeah.
Okay, that's what.
All right. Foundation report, Trustee Musil.
The Foundation Executive Board met on the 17th, and we received our audit for the foundation from McGladrey, and it was unqualified. It just sounds so bad to say we paid a lot for an unqualified opinion, but we got one, and that's good. And they reported on Beyond Bounds Brilliant, which was held on October 22nd, drew 700 people, and netted a profit for the foundation of $158,000, which is $21,000 more than 2 years ago, the last time it was held. 154 pieces of art were sold, 33,500 raised in sponsorship. I didn't know this history, but the first Beyond Bounds was organized in 1992, and from 1992 through this year, this raised more than $850,000 to support exhibitions, acquisitions, and arts education programs on campus and at the Nerman. So that's significant. That's real money over the last 19 years. Some Enchanted Evening was held this last Saturday night. I think about everybody was there. It was a great evening. Terry and Marlene were the co-chairs, and we honored the past 29 Johnson Counties of the Year, of which 23 were there. No, there are 29 because some of them had 2 in 1 year. Some of them were couples. That threw me off at first too, but there were more than 24 honorees in 24 years. So, Tom Mitchell with DLR Group led the corporate sponsor team. The event raised over $627,000, which is more than about double of what the best year was before that. And over 25 years has raised over $5 million for student scholarships. That's student assistance. That's pretty impressive. I'm going to read the names of the largest sponsors, even though most of us knew it, but for those who might actually be flipping around on the channel, I think it's important that they know who in the community supported this at this level. The first ever visionary sponsor was $100,000 from the Judge William and Maxine Allen family. Judge Allen and Maxine passed away, I think, in August, but have been just longtime attendees of this event and great examples of people who were public service oriented. So $100,000 from the Allen family. 8 legacy sponsors: BNSF Railway Company, that we have a pretty good relationship with here on campus, Capital Federal, Friends of Barton P. Cohen, Ben Craig, the Kirk Foundation, Olathe Medical Center, George and Patricia Sim, and the Victor and Helen Rainier Charitable Foundation. 2 sunflower sponsors were Don and Adele Hall and the Scholl Family Charitable Foundation, and there were 7 open pedal sponsors: Barton P. and Mary Davidson Cohen Charitable Trust, Black and Veatch, Gould Evans, J.E. Dunn, Kansas City Regional Association of Realtors, McGowan Gordon Construction, and Midwest Trust / Financial Counselors, Inc. It was a good time was had by all, particularly prior to the dinner when we all watched Kansas State win a 4 overtime game in the bar. That concludes my report.
And if I'm not mistaken, Maxine Allen was one of the first trustees for the college as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I know Kate's with us. I'm not
Yes.
sure if Kate had anything else she wanted to share related to.
She wrote this for me. There can't be anything else.
Thank you. Dr. Calloway asked that I just share very briefly about our Foundation Quarterly that I believe you all have a copy of. He just wanted me to draw your attention to that and our efforts to improve our messaging and communication with our volunteers, our Foundation Board, and eventually our donors. We're taking very early steps to pilot some of these internal communications just now, or right now these just go to our board and you all as trustees. Under past President Sandy Price and the Executive Committee of the Foundation, there was a push to move our messaging to more e-communication. She called for an elimination of hard copy calendars, hard copy invitations when possible, and the like. So this is an attempt to consolidate our communication in a more organized fashion to better equip our board members, to make them brand ambassadors, to make them more improved key communicators for the foundation. So this is an internal prototype, if you will. The layout has changed several times based on feedback from the board. It will continue to change as we receive updates and branding based on the college changes to the logo and colors and things like that. I would like to thank Julie Haas's department and Ian Nance, who helped us with not just this, but with all of our collateral. He did everything for Some Enchanted Evening, the program, as well. So he's been a great help, and we've relied on that resource here at the college immensely. We're also working on a revised website with Julie's department, and we'll eventually be using this communication to drive people to that site, which will be more interactive with donor stories, student testimonials, updates on various projects that we've been a part of, and things like that. So again, just a very brief update. We're excited to move ahead in this direction. We welcome your feedback and comments about it, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Any other questions?
Trustee Sharp.
I have a quick question. If you find out who donated the strep throat that everybody has, that went, I would like to pay them a personal visit.
No tax deduction for that, right?
Right.
I'll be right next to you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just to Kate and the team, Kristen and, everyone from the foundation group, they've just done such a spectacular job this fall. Bruce Hartman, the group over at the museum. You think about between those 2 projects raising, we're starting to push towards almost $1 million of funds to support the museum, to support student scholarships. Really spectacular work on both Kate, Kristen, certainly Bruce, Art, and the whole team over in the museum. We're very, very lucky. And as we heard earlier from Dr. Cook, when we have people from around the community say, wow, what a special place the college is. And, we're like anywhere else. We have our warts. But, I think the work that special people like Bruce, Kate, Kristen, Art, the rest of the team and that have done some really spectacular things this last month or so. I don't know if they've slept at all, but, thank you. Really great work on everyone's part. We really appreciate it.
If you see Kristen McDaniel in the next month or 2, I mean, she handled both of those events 3 weeks apart. So she's the special event coordinator and just, she made it happen. She pulled it together. So really, really grateful to have her. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on then to the Collegial Steering Committee report. which Dr. Drummond and I attended earlier this afternoon. The discussion focused primarily around the approach to negotiations for faculty contracts next year, and focused mostly on exploring the possibility of using an interest-based bargaining approach, which is similar to what was used 2 years ago, as opposed to a traditional adversarial bargaining approach. And so that was essentially the gist of our conversation for about 45 minutes this afternoon. And Dr. Drummond, anything that you would like to add to that?
I think that's a very good summary. Thank you.
Okay. And do we have any questions or comments regarding that? All right. Seeing none, then we'll move on to a faculty association. And Mr. Anderson. Perhaps you came away from the collegial steering meeting with a different view than I did, but I think that.
No, I think you summed it up well, and I thought it was a good conversation, and I'm excited about the possibility of bringing that model forward and hopefully being able to get a tradition of working with that model long-term, because I think there's been some folks around the country that have been using this in a long-term kind of fashion, and the longer we can use this, the better the teams become at this process, and the trust is built, I think, through the process, through a long-term effort with it. So I'm excited about it. So she just left, but I wanted to thank Kate for the work the foundation does for student scholarships. They do a great job, and really appreciate the work they do. So also, I wanted to thank you guys for this. Is I'm getting kind of off topic here, but I wanted to thank you guys for voting to approve the building here tonight too. I think it's just a really exciting building, and it's going to be very unique, and can't wait to see it on campus here. It'll be a great addition to the campus. The faculty have been involved in a couple of very important projects these past months, and they're just coming to a close here in the next, probably in the next few days. Actually, one of them has been the sabbatical process. We had a group of faculty apply for sabbaticals, and if you're not real familiar with the process, you have to go through a kind of a series of exercises to develop a proposal, and it's got to be kind of fine-tuned to fit within these parameters, and then you go through an interview process where you're facing peers in a committee, and you're doing a presentation of your idea, and they have questions, and then they do a rating process as to see who's going to get the award and who's not going to get the award. And so it was I'm hearing bits and pieces. I don't have all the results yet. I was actually waiting to get a report from someone tonight to be able to share some information on this, but the report was late in coming. But I know Dr. Anna was involved in the committee, and I want to thank Anita Tebby for chairing the committee. And we've got, from what I hear, some very, very strong proposals coming forward for the sabbaticals, and I want to thank your support for the program, because I think it's a very valuable program for the college. It's a very valuable program for faculty renewal, and it's just speaking for myself, I've had a couple sabbaticals over my 23 years I've been here at the college, and it's a tremendous benefit. So I want to thank you for that support. Also, another process that's coming close to an end is the Distinguished Service Award. That the faculty go through that process to be recognized in that vein. I spoke with our external judge just last night, and I used to work with this fellow years ago, and he's got a background in higher education, and also he's got a background in business. He runs his own consulting company, and he was telling me last night on the phone that he was just very, very impressed with the quality of work that the faculty are doing, and just he didn't know a lot about the campus, but he said, I have a better feel for the campus after reading these projects and reading the work that the faculty have been doing. And so he's going to send those results in by fax tomorrow, and so those should be probably publicized here pretty soon, I would think. So. And then finally, I want to thank Dr. Callaway for his support on this articulation front here, because it's just a real critical movement for the college here, and I would love to see Kansas getting into the year 2011 on this articulation business. So, yeah.
2005 or
2002
yeah,
or that'd be fine too. Yeah, right. As opposed to the Stone Age. So yeah. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, Dr. Cook?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman Weiss. Jeff, I've been on this board now for just a short time, And it seems like many of the reports usually are around negotiations. I appreciate your comments tonight about the sabbaticals and about the work you're doing with the Distinguished Service. I think going forward, I'm not going to ask you tonight, but going forward, I'd really be interested in any strategies that the Faculty Association is involved in to advance teaching and learning on the campus, and perhaps a success story or two of such strategies. So for example, you've been encouraging about the sabbatical. It would be refreshing, at least to me, to hear of someone who's been on sabbatical and a brief summary of how that advanced teaching and learning on the campus. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, go ahead.
When I get a chance to see the detail of the proposals, I can maybe bring those next month and share this with you. And I think you'll be impressed when you see the depth and the quality of the work that they'll be doing, outside of the campus for these projects. And I'm confident in saying that a lot of that work they do outside the campus will be brought back to the campus and be able to use, in the classrooms and other learning applications across campus too.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I would like to second Trustee Cook's comments in the sense that we saw a wonderful presentation about what I think is a very beautiful and exciting building and opportunity for us here on the campus, but it's essentially just an empty building. And it's the faculty that will be leading the classes in those two classrooms that will bring the building to life. And I, for one, would appreciate hearing more about the wonderful work that the faculty is doing at this campus.
Thanks for saying that.
Anything else? All right, thank you. All right, our Student Senate report. And Ms. Gallineau.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me here once again. I will begin with what Student Senate has accomplished so far, and then move on with updating you with our ongoing and future projects. So, as I said in our previous meeting, JCCC Student Senate hosted the Trick or Treat for Kids in October. We had around 60 children from the community show up, and it was a great success. Around 5 or 6 clubs and organizations from JCCC participated into engaging with the children and making this event a success. We're hoping to make it a Student Senate tradition and continue for the next years as well. As always, we're continuing to fund student organizations and clubs, for their trips and events. We have funded organizations for both fall and spring, allocating more than half of our budget. And we're happy to help them with all their educational goals as well as trips and professional activities. We had senators participate in the JCCC safety and security audit. We were able to discuss some great ideas along with other students. We're hoping that the emergency preparedness might be visiting us for more in-depth discussions with the senators. Some of the ideas heard in that meeting were maybe offering sessions of martial arts or self-defense along with student orientation. So the students are more aware of the fact of where they are and how to protect themselves if anything arises. In addition, there have been requests for more lighting in some of the ITC and ATB parking lots because it's really dark, especially during night classes. We are exploring solutions to maybe make more signage available for motorcycle parking because we know there are spots available, but maybe making the students more aware of where they are and perhaps providing maps with where exactly they would be if they're not familiar with the campus. The Student Senate Executive Board is having monthly tabling around the campus. We have been so far to the library, the ITC, the OCB, and the comm buildings, trying to get students around campus from every single department and see their concerns and needs and also their comments and ideas for future projects that the Student Senate would have. As a result of the tabling, we received a concern from students who are parents about the no children policy in the computer labs. We are communicating with the computer labs in order to maybe find a solution, maybe set an age limit or other applicable guidelines in order to try and accommodate their needs and as much as possible. The Service and Fundraising Committee of the Student Senate is looking at our November project, which is the Photos with Santa. I think you're all familiar with that. It takes place November 30th at the Student Lounge, which is the Com 322. And it's, I believe, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So you're more all invited to take a photo with Santa Claus and get some beverages and maybe snacks. Along with the Photos of Santa events, as every year, we're hosting a service project. This year, it's called the JCCC Gives. Previous years, we were looking at Johnson County organizations, maybe TLC or other organizations like that to donate. This year, we decided to put a focus more on the JCCC students, faculty, and staff of the college. So we asked different people around JCCC to nominate people who they know have a need for this Christmas and are working or are students of JCCC. We've had some wonderful nominations from people that are really struggling financially and would use this extra support. We have received, we welcome donations or gifts, both in monetary form, but also in the items. Those are received from both the faculty as groups, but also various student clubs and organizations will be donating as a group, adopting as a person or an item for that person. And we're also receiving general monetary donations that will go towards that, maybe accommodating those needs. Lastly, we're starting our scholarship committee in order to distribute the funds that we collected last year for the Dollar for Scholars. We're now accepting nominations for international and out-of-state students. It's an international and out-of-state involvement scholarships, and the application is due December 2nd. So next month we will have those names for the people that have received the scholarship. So we're really excited about that. That's all the updates that I have at this point, and I can take any questions or comments that you would have.
Do you have any questions or comments? Trustee Musil?
I'm very excited to see the Student Senate get involved in the security on campus, because I know that the board takes it seriously. I know that our safety and security people take it seriously, and you can never be secure enough, and we can never guarantee it, but the students see it, and if there are things we can improve upon, then I think there's a great willingness to do it here. And there's a recent editorial in the Ledger that nobody should get the impression that this campus isn't safe, but you guys are here every day and you see things that maybe we don't see. So thank you for that emphasis and help.
Thank you, absolutely. And I think students are here every day and they see what issues and what makes them feel less safe or more safe, and maybe either add something or keep doing what we're doing. All right.
Any other comments or questions?
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just to recognize one of our student leaders, Eric Gormley, who's with our Veterans Club here on campus, who, along with Gina and the hard work of our students here, organized a reading of all of the names of the service veterans who've lost their lives since 9/11. I think there were about.
There were a lot of names.
It was like some number, like 5,000 or 6,000
Yes.
names that were read over the course of about 10 or 12 hours here on Veterans Day, along with a host of other events that took place. We had the Tuskegee Airmen event and also a veterans luncheon for employees and students who were vets. But Eric did just a great job of organizing folks to read the names and the like, and a very moving activity for those of us who have lost friends or family. And so anyhow, I just would commend the Student Senate and certainly Veterans Club for that. And it was a pretty important day for us. So anyhow, thank you for that, your hard work, and certainly Eric's.
Thank you.
And I just want to make one other comment as well. I am very impressed with the dedication and commitment that the students have to this college and to this campus. Going back a while back ago, when the students voted to increase their own fees for green and sustainability projects, and also for the students to put their money where their mouth is with the $150,000 towards this building. So I'm just very impressed with the students' actions in that regard. So as their ambassador, I congratulate you on that.
On behalf of all the students, I thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That moves us to the second petitions and communications portion of the agenda this evening. It's a time for members of the community to provide comments to the board. Comments are limited to 5 minutes unless a significant number of people plan to speak. In that instance, the chair may limit a person's comments to less than 5 minutes. Presenters have the opportunity to speak at either the first or second, rather than both. And prior to beginning comments, we ask that you state your name, your address, city, and state. And do we have anyone that would like to address the board at this time? All right, seeing none, I will close the petitions, communications section of the agenda, and we'll move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a part of the board agenda where a number of items are grouped together of a rather routine nature and considered in one motion. And at this time, I'd like to ask whether there are any motions in our consent agenda that a board member would like to pull to have considered separately. Trustee Stewart.
I would like to have Human Resources C1 retirements pulled.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then I'd like to entertain a motion that the consent agenda be approved, minus item C1, retirements under the Human Resources section.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have both a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion's passed, and we return to item C1. And John, if I think that I know maybe where you're going with this, even though it's maybe a year from now.
Could be. Yeah, could be. You never know what I might come
I'm
up
not
with.
in favor of, not in favor of approving that motion either, but I don't want to steal your thunder. Please continue.
We have the good fortune of having a lot of great employees at the college, faculty, staff, administration, and I know that they probably don't get the appreciation that they deserve always, but I personally don't get to work with all of them. And there's a gentleman here that's, I see, is going to retire December 31st of 2012, Bob Prater. And I don't know how many years you've been here, Bob, but I think as many years as I've been active at the college, and I worked with you many years ago on some banking issues. And so I've gotten to know Bob Prater over those years. And typical Bob Prater fashion, he doesn't give a month or two notice. He's given us over a year's notice that he's retiring December 31st of 2012. So we'll have a lot of time to still ask you lots of questions, Bob. But I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your service to the college and what you've done and your calm steadiness and your financial knowledge of what is going on here at the college. And that is going to be truly missed, but I'm glad we get to use that expertise and experience for another year. And I propose that we accept the retirements with, I guess, regrets. I don't know how you say that, but I wish you were going to work another 20 years, but I know you've done an outstanding job. So.
And I assume that any time during the next year, the board has the opportunity to rescind their approval on this motion as well. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, and I would just echo the remarks that Trustee Stewart has made. I've had the opportunity just to work with Bob for a couple years now, and I've leaned upon him a great deal as a fairly new trustee and new on the management committee, and just been exceedingly impressed with his knowledge and his wisdom and how he has guided the college across many years to the place where we are now, which is a great place. So thank you, Bob. We'll be working with you for a while longer, but we'll miss you when you do leave.
Dr. Callaway, did you have a comment?
Well, if I just might, for those of us who have a chance to work with Bob every day, we know the kind of work that he does, and I think to Trustee Stewart and Trustee Drummond's comments, we would all of us around the college would concur, but I would just say that if the taxpayers of Johnson County knew the kind of work that Bob Prater's done for this institution for decades, they'd all be writing him emails and sending him letters of thanks, because we are in the financial position we are as an institution because of Bob's good work and the leadership he's provided to his team, and we've been very, very lucky to have Bob on our team, and everywhere from the way he invests to the way that he advises. All the taxpayers of Johnson County, I think, owe him a great debt, and we just want to recognize you too, Bob. Thank you.
And I'm most pleased that the fact that we had the compliance report and we were off by $18 on $51 million was not the reason Bob announced his retirement.
Got a year to fix that.
Right. And again, congratulations on your retirement, and the college will certainly be the poorer for it. So again, congratulations on you. And with that, I believe that we are still missing a vote on this motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And I don't believe we have any other business to come before the board, and so I will adjourn the meeting.